Thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. So as of filming this, it's actually 8:42 on the 30th of September. I was going to review another movie that's not horror related and try to get another review in that's not horror related because I have plenty planned out, but I'm going to wait a month. I'm going to keep my notes and just, I'm pretty good with my memory as far as my thoughts on movies. So I'm going to keep my notes for those other non-horror or non-Halloween related films until next month. Moving forward, unless it's a brand new release or some collab that I already had set up way before October with somebody, you guys can expect nothing but horror and Halloween related reviews moving forward. So yeah, let's talk about the second installment into the Freddy Krueger franchise, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I've always loved this character, and if you guys saw in my first review for the first movie, I love that movie. I think what Wes Craven did with that movie and that character was just so well done. I love the character. It's a tense film. It's exciting. It's energetic. It's not necessarily terrifying, but there's definitely some creepy visuals and creepy elements, and it's definitely a film that I thoroughly enjoy going back and watching it. And Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger, is just fantastic in that movie. So how does the sequel hold up? Well, it was actually directed by Jack Sholder, who, if I'm not mistaken, this was only his second feature film. The first film that he did was an earlier 80s horror film called Alone in the Dark, if I'm not mistaken, which I saw once before a long time ago. But yeah, this guy didn't have a huge list of films that he had directed up to this point. So when you have a change from somebody that's as iconic as Wes Craven to somebody like this, you do get a little bit worried. And I did forget that Wes Craven didn't do the sequel. So rewatching it, I was definitely curious to see how different it would be. And with that said, yeah, I think without a doubt I can say that just losing Wes Craven as the director definitely lost a little bit of the magic and the tension and the story building that was done in that first film. With the, it was just such a subtle horror film that gave you enough information as you needed it for it to be a very creepy and cool premise while keeping Freddy Krueger wrapped around in mystery. Now, what I will say is this movie does a great job of kind of doing a similar thing. Freddy Krueger is used sparingly, and when he is used, it is effective. I think everything with Robert Englund in this film is phenomenal, and I think the biggest praise I can give this film, without a doubt, are the practical effects done in this movie. There's literally a sequence in this movie, and if you guys have seen the movie, you guys know exactly what sequence I'm talking about. It's a very standout moment where Freddy is literally busting through this person's body, and I'm going to get into that in just one second. But the effect of Freddy busting through this guy's body, coming through his fingernails, coming through his chest, is so well done. It does have that older horror film kind of feel to it, where it doesn't necessarily look 100% realistic, but it is really effective, and I would say for the most part really still holds up. So without a doubt, my biggest praise about this film are the practical effects and Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. He is so good in the role, and it just goes to show why he went on to become such an iconic character and why nobody can ever see anybody else playing that role. So like I mentioned, Robert Englund is in this film once again as Freddy Krueger, but you also have the main character of this film played by Mark Patton. I believe that's how his last name is pronounced. And then you have Kim Myers, and who's the other guy? Robert Rustler. I have the notes down here. I couldn't remember Robert Rustler. But yeah, there's plenty of other people in this film. Those are just the first 4 names that I wrote down. And yeah, I think without a doubt, the main character that this movie focuses on is the character played by Mark Patton. And I enjoyed his character. He was a little over the top and a little bit... the performance just felt a little cartoony at times. But by the end of the film, I found myself enjoying him as this character that has to go through the situation that, realistically would be incredibly terrifying. So I've kind of gotten a little bit ahead of myself, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what this movie's all about. Essentially, you have a new family that's moved into the same house that Nancy, the character from the first film, was living in. He hears from somebody else that there's a history to the house, that the girl who lived in the house went crazy after she saw her boyfriend get killed across the street, the character of Glenn, played by Johnny Depp in the first film. So, you get these connective tissue and connective pieces to that first film, but, what I enjoy about it is that this film really does make its own story. There are hints and nods, and there's specifically a moment with a diary where they learn more about the events of the first film. But yeah, this movie is mainly about the fact that Freddy did not die, he's back, and now you have these new people in this house who are afraid because things are starting to get creepy and things are starting to get really weird. Over the course of the film, the main character starts to uncover things about Freddy Krueger and kind of the mystery of his character and what happened in the household. He ends up calling his dad on the fact that his dad actually knew that there was something that happened in the house, that there was some murders and there was some, some creepy stuff that had happened. The rest of the family is kind of upset because he kept that secret from them. But I think that the main character, since it focuses mainly on him, I think that sometimes the acting and the direction of these scenes was a little over the top at times, and it was really rough to relate with him because he was this character going through this whole situation. But with Nancy, she kind of, was afraid, she was terrified. You felt for her in the first film, but it felt like she started trying to figure things out for herself and trying to take charge. Whereas in this case, it felt like our main character was kind of helpless in a lot of ways, which gets into the next thing that I'm going to talk about, which is probably the coolest part about this movie, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about Freddy busting through this guy's chest and out of his hands and everything, is that in this movie, Freddy is actually possessing this guy's body, which is a different take on the character based on what we saw in the first film. So in this one, he's trying to take control of our main character, and later on literally comes through his body, literally busts through his body. And of course, similar to the previous film, you have the whole thing where, like, if you essentially don't give Freddy any power, like, you pretty much just know that he's not real, you don't allow him to scare you, is how you defeat him. And, the main character is able to survive through the other characters eventually being like, all right, well, you're a piece of shit, you're not real, you don't scare me, so, give me the other guy back, you know what I mean? And then Freddy ends up going away. So this is a follow-up from a different director with a different vision, and, sometimes that just tends to kind of take away a little bit of the magic. But I do enjoy what Jack Sholder did with this film. I felt the film, for the most part, was well acted, though there were some elements that just felt cheesy. It felt very 80s, you know what I mean? I love seeing the attire and the cars and the clothes. This film also ends very similar to how the movie opens, but also very similar to how the first film ends, where it's kind of like you're not really out of the situation. The characters are still dealing with Freddy, you think he's defeated, but here he comes back, you know what I mean? Like you're caught in it again. So watching this one, I thought it was a good time. I think it was a solid follow-up to the first film. Without a doubt, just not nearly as good as the first film. I think that the first film had better acting, better tension, better kills, and an overall just better story and plot, and something that was a little bit more engaging. Whereas this one, there were some moments where I felt a little bit bored. There were some moments where I just found myself not really caring for the characters. And I guess that would be the biggest negative, is that though I loved what was happening with Freddy, and though I really loved the practical effects and I was engaged while watching it, whereas in the first film, I actually found myself attached to characters or Nancy, and not so much in this movie. So yeah, guys, what is your favorite Freddy Krueger movie? What do you think of this movie? Do you think it was a weak sequel? Do you think it was a worthy sequel? I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. If you guys have been watching this channel for a while, you know that I love slasher films, so even the worst of them, I still find something to enjoy in them. There's always something cheesy and fun to these movies for me, like the bird that explodes in the living room randomly at some point in the movie. Cheesy stuff like that definitely just kind of blends in well with the slasher genre, and I just always have had a lot of fun watching these movies and being able to just enjoy the cheesy elements while also being able to enjoy the kills and the tense moments as well. So yeah, I thought this was a good time. I wasn't blown away by it, but I really enjoyed Robert Englund. I enjoyed the practical effects. Those are the biggest things to praise about this movie, and I'm looking forward to watching the next one, Dream Warriors, which I'm hoping to have some guests in that review. But yeah, thank you guys again for watching. Sorry for rambling a little bit there. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe if you have not already done so, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.